All right, for you folks watching the replay, give me a couple minutes here. This is kind of an off-the-cuff video. I did not pre-set this or schedule this, so I want to wait till people come in. I haven't even had a chance to get things done around here yet. Just having my morning coffee, and I want to have a little chat with you guys. I'll see if anybody pops in here over the next minute or so. What is this? Okay. All right, I see a couple people popping in here. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. That'd be great. My plan this morning, or it's almost this afternoon, is to go over in a little bit more detail with you how things are going to affect the family farm. And yes, your homestead. Hey, Cowboy Roy, nice to see you here. I want to also talk a little bit about some ignorance that's going on with the whole situation. And it doesn't matter what side politically you're on when it comes to this stuff. There's some facts that, and I have a basic understanding of the markets. I do because I'm a farmer and I understand to plan for the future. I work in the dairy industry that you have to have a basic understanding of the futures markets. And the futures markets are the futures markets, no matter if it's a petroleum based, agricultural based, milk, whatever it is. They all work the same way. It's a issue of supply and demand. So before I get into the specifics about agriculture and how this is going to file that in and how it's really going to affect the farmers and in turn how that's going to trickle down to you, I want to touch base on this. We've all seen the Facebook and social media memes about, the gas prices, and people are taking pictures at the pump, and, what would have costed them $50 to fill up a year and a half ago is costing them $125, $150 now with a truck, what have you. It's hard to look at these things and not have your blood just boil, because regardless of what the media says, regardless of what the administration says, regardless of what the system is telling you, like I always say, from the beginning of all these crises, whether it was, shutting down schools, for CV, all this stuff, it's been all manufactured. It is manufactured crises, manufactured trial and tribulation. And you can go back into my videos and I explain how the meat packers and stuff were doing that. The corporate entities were affecting agriculture even 3 years ago now when this all started. So folks, a little bit of explanation on the futures market. It's very basic, very easy to understand. Our markets, no matter what the market is, whether that's agricultural, gas, it doesn't matter what it is. They run on supply and demand, all right? Supply and demand dictate prices. Now, this is for all you folks out there that are toting the line that shutting down the Keystone Pipeline didn't make a difference, that didn't cause these gas prices to go up. Listen to me. If there was 1,000 farms in Wisconsin today that shut down, and that supply of milk and meat, yes, because dairy farms produce a lot of meat, was gone in 24 hours, what do you think's going to happen the next day? The investors in the market are going to say, whoa, there's no longer the supply there that is needed for the demand. And guess what the future market does? It skyrockets because it's supply and demand. Okay? If there's a heavy supply, which this has been the problem in agriculture for a long time, is there's too much of a product made, therefore the farmers don't get paid as much, right? The price is low because there's just too much. There's too much on the market. Now we have a situation here where the administration shut down the Keystone Pipeline. And no, the Keystone Pipeline was not supplying any petroleum at that time. But the futures market was hedging that it would, and that there would be more of a supply in the chain, in the supply chain. So when that got shut down, prices started to go up immediately. Now they didn't go up, they didn't skyrocket in 24 and 48 hours right after he signed that executive order. But they did go up. They went up 50 cents, 75 cents. We went from $1.87, $1.80 to $2 to $3.50 within 3 months of that act. Okay. Now, if you out there are going to sit there and try to convince me that that had nothing to do with the prices, I'm going to tell you that you're delusional and you have no concept of the markets and you have no concept of supply and demand and the supply chain. Okay. So, and again, this is not a political thing. This is just the way our system works. Agriculture works this way. Gas works. It all works this way. Okay. So when I see these people doing this, I'm just like banging my head on the wall. Like they need to have a basic understanding of the supply chain and the markets and how they work. Like I said, if 1,000 dairy farms just shut down, you're going to see the prices skyrocket, and that's exactly what's happening in the petroleum based sector. Good morning, Christy. George, I'm going to be harassing the neighbors' kids so I can plow my fields. Harnessing. Sorry, I need some glasses. It's getting to the point, George, where we are going to have to think about alternative methods. I don't know if harnessing up the children is such a good idea. You might end up on some sort of list there, but there's got to be some way we can combine efforts as farmers to help each other out for sure. Of course, it had something to do with it, and they pushed the electric cars. Yes, and that's, guys, I didn't want to get into that, but I'm going to just touch base on my theories and my thoughts on that. They want to push the electric cars because there's an off switch. There's a shut off switch. It's control. Anything government does, it comes back to control. And make no mistake, the lithium mines and the pollutants that these electric batteries cause, I would argue are far more harmful than any coal or oil, anything the oil industry has ever done. And I'm very hard on the oil industry, guys. I've made videos about their spills. My dad used to work, my grandfather ran the major hub, the supply hub, the big tank farm here for Koch Industries for about 30 years. My dad worked for Koch Industries for some time. So I don't know a lot, but I know more than some people about the system and how it works because I have family members in the industry. But the lithium mines, if you guys go online and look up how lithium is mined, it's devastating. It's destructive, and there's a lot of child slave labor involved. So now understand, we're literally putting the sake of our energy and what we have and our vehicles and our transport into the hands of other nations because we don't do this here. And that's what this is about. So I just touch base on that kind of world view on that. Yes, please hit the like button that drives up the algorithm to push people to the page. That'd be great. So understand, if you're taking that line that affected nothing, it's out of ignorance, and you are in cognitive dissonance in a political box, because this is not about politics at this point. It's about agenda, and you can link one to the other, but the agenda is, and always has been, to weaken America, to weaken our agricultural systems. And guys, for as many years as I've been producing food for families and in the dairy industry and working for other small family dairy farmers, there has been a consistent attack on agriculture for years now, primarily the last 30 to 40 years, but the last 10 to 15 years it's been devastating. That is what's been happening to the farmers. I've stated this in the past, that here in Wisconsin, we lost last year, we lost an average, and this is an average, okay, about one farm a week in Wisconsin. So, understand what that means. One farm a week. And I apologize for this. I'm going to see if I could turn this, and maybe that'll help. I see that it's kind of getting shady and going in and out, but what is going to happen now? Listen, I'm not a psychic. I cannot tell you for absolute sure, and I'm not going to guarantee these things, but I'm going to tell you, I am known for not pushing sensationalism. I won't have clickbait on my channel. And I have said to you, take a step back, because there's a lot of channels out there that push the sky is falling with this grand solar minimum, that the grand part is still up for debate. We're in a debate. We're in a solar minimum, but the grand is up for debate. I don't care what anybody says, it's up for debate. And they've not clearly assessed the capabilities of the American farmer to adapt to the challenges. And we have been adapting to the challenges, okay? So I'm not going to sit here and push the sky is falling. There's not going to be any food made in America, and every store shelf is going to be empty. You're not going to hear that from me. But what I am about to tell you and explain to you is it's going to be very difficult for you, and especially the farmers. I'm going to check my chat real quick here. And the naive think high oil prices only affect the gas pump. Yeah, it's nonsense. And I'm going to go over some very particulars about how that exactly affects. After Stacy's videos, consider watching the U.S. Law Shield video. Just shared live, converting legally operating within God-given constitutional rights. Yes, please do that, guys. You're correct on the batteries and how we produce the power to change them. What a scam. It is a scam. And I just keep thinking, we all know that the electrical grid is on thin ice. I mean, we've had the warnings from multiple military and governmental whistleblowers about how thin ice the electrical grid's on. All it takes is an EMP, a CME, whatever, or bad weather. We have rolling blackouts continuously through the United States. It's not just about a mass, extinction event, right? There is always these rolling blackouts. And for somebody to say, all right, we're going to take a fossil fuel vehicle, combustible engine, we're going to replace it with electricity, that is not, they argue that they are just as powerful and stuff. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. I don't know about that. But that now we have to depend on the grid even more. You know what? My mom used to tell me is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Because you know what happens when you put your eggs in one basket and you run and you're skipping and hopping? You trip and you crack and you bust all your eggs. And then you're all out of eggs. And that is the path that we're on right now. The key to a prosperous country, business, and family is to be diversified from many angles. And right now, what the government is trying to do with agriculture and at the gas pump, and all these things, they're trying to centralize it all, right down to the resources that they use. It is all about centralizing and controlling the market. And people like me are out there. I just did a prior video. Please watch that on EMP and how you can help your farmer and how they can help you. I make a statement in there that the whole key for us to fix this problem is to decentralize it all. Just dismantle it, decentralize it. And that is the true path to the free market systems and food security in America. All right. 2020, being of the solar maximum of solar cycle 25, the change of polarity and sunspots. So we actually are in solar maximum. Yes, we are entering, and the sun is woken up again. Yes, but likely beginning the grand solar minimum. Yeah, and I'm not, like I said, Roy, I'm not saying that we're not in that can't happen. But I've studied and researched the agricultural effects historically on the grand solar minimum, and we're just not sitting in the same position as what they were back in the 1700s when the last one hit. All right. Good morning, Christy. So folks, I'm going to go over a little bit here. Now, agriculture as a whole accounts for about 40 to 44% of the consumption of of petroleum-based products. Now, it's not just gas. So, when they're going to come to you and say, agriculture uses 50% of the gas supply. That's not it. It's 40 to 44% of the entirety of petroleum-based products. Now, what are those products? A big one in industrial agriculture is fertilizers and pesticides. All right. They all come from petroleum. They're all made from petroleum, which is one reason why and I push sustainable farming, no-till, and ways to mitigate being so reliant on that, because look at the situation we're in now. Okay. So there is fertilizer, pesticides. That's a big part of it. And now, as I stated in my last video, we have this situation with Russia. Russia, they make the vast majority of the fertilizers in the world. And the U.S. isn't producing much of anything. And we've become consumers. We are a consumer-based nation. The only thing we do produce is some agricultural products, but we don't produce fertilizers, pesticides, things like that. Those are mainly produced across, over the pond overseas. And now Russia is shutting off the faucet for that. So now we have a situation where the petroleum to make it is high, and we have a nation that has said, nope, you're not getting any more. So as I said, with the dairy farm shutting down, what do you think is going to happen? So as to date, everything that I can look up and research as far as fertilizers go, and I've talked to my boss, it is 3 times more expensive at this point, and that is early. Most people won't even be getting their like up here. Some of you folks down south and in the kind of the middle regions may be getting some fertilizers shipped in now, but up here we don't usually get that until the last week in May, June, when planting starts, and then for the potato fields anyways, and then mid-June, when things start popping up. So again, let's get back. There's diesel and gas used in the agriculture. That's a given, right? They got to run the tractors. A farmer's got to run the tractors. They got to run the vehicles and things like this. Generators run off of gas or what have you. So that's a big dependency there. LP, people don't consider the fact that the agricultural industry relies a lot on LP, which is natural gas, propane type of stuff. And how do they use that? I have discussed this before. When a farmer takes their product, their wheat, their corn, their grains to the mill, they still have to be dried. They still need to be made and dehydrated, so to speak, so it can be stored long term. So the grain, I'll just say corn, right? It goes down into a bunker and it gets rotated up through big lines, and it goes through a big turbine that is heated with LP gas, highly combustible. A lot of LP is used. It takes a lot of heat to dry that stuff. And that's another reason I come against these other channels when they say, oh, this mill blew up, right? It started on fire. Guys, if you knew the process involved and how much natural gas, propane, and things like that was going through and how combustible that is, you would understand that just because you saw a mill on fire, you would know it's not some missile or an attack from another nation. It just happens. Okay, guys? So, as I said, so fertilizer, pesticides, diesel, gas, LP, electricity. Agriculture does use quite a bit of electricity. Just for an example of that, on our dairy farms here in Wisconsin, because the processes have gone to more of a confinement operation. Now get this, guys. I work for a dairy farm that confines the milking ladies, the cows, the heifers and the cows that are in milk. Okay, they are confined. They have nice tall beds with shavings. I'm not going to tell you that I wholeheartedly agree with that system, but I have compassion and mercy for the farmers because I know the system, the government, and the corporations have pushed them into it. They cannot produce the amount of milk they need by simply feeding. And here's another thing: the dairy genetics are no longer grass fed. You have to have specific grass-fed genetics to feed grass only. Even if they were out on the pastures eating grass and not haylage or silage, they can't consume the amount of proteins and calories that they need to keep up with production, to keep up with what the system demands. So the farmers have been pushed into this situation. And yes, I know organic farmers that went into business for 2 years and they were put out of business within 2 years because the system is so manipulated to push, just push. So guys, understand I work for, but there are other cows, the cows that are on, are dried up, that are resting, and the feeders and stuff, they're out on pasture. They're able to move around. So understand that there's a lot of electricity used in the summertime, big fans. When we start up the milk machines, to milk, it's all electricity. The bulk tanks run off of electricity. There's constant circulation going to keep the cream from coming to the top, to keep that going. There's refrigeration involved in that. There's heavy electricity use in the meat department or ranching department. Of course, some of the meat cows are confined and there would be that fan use, but even if they are out on pasture and rotational grazing, when cow comes to slaughter, of course it takes gas or diesel to get the cow there, gas or diesel to harvest for that cow and feed that cow. Now you're talking heavy refrigeration. The process is that once the cow is slaughtered, that the cow is dead, it's slaughtered, goes into refrigeration, goes into a facility. Just a lot of electricity, a lot of mechanism and things like that go into that. So understand that expenses is high there. And then when they're talking about pushing these electric vehicles and tractors and things like this, it's not adding up. It's a recipe for disaster. So other type of things are simple lubricants. Everything runs on a lubricant, whether that's grease, oil-based lubricants. It doesn't matter what it is. Everything needs to be greased up, right? The bulk tank that has this constant agitator in it to keep the milk moving, to keep it from not separating, it needs to be lubricated. It sounds like something very small, but it's all expenses. It's all things that add up. So there's other things. Now, for you small producers for your family, or you're just producing for 2 to 3 families, you can have alternatives to this, but I have to use flats, like planting flats to start my produce or my seedings for my CSA members and for the farm here, for the farm store. There are new flats that they've created that are kind of, you buy them a once and done. They're really thick plastic, and plastic comes from petroleum. And unfortunately, like one of those is $15 to $20, depending on where you go, $12 to $15 to $20 just for one. So when you're looking in the context of having to put out, say, 500 flats, that's a lot of money. I can't afford that. So what I do is I try to reuse all my flats until I can't use my planting flats anymore. They usually last me 2 to 3, 4 years if I'm lucky, but they don't last a long time because, as you know, UV, the sun, degrades everything. So a lot of times they get brittle and things like that. But of course, you folks out there that are producing on a small level wouldn't have to use those type of things, but I do. I cannot seed enough using solo cups. And when you use solo cups, like, the average producer, how home gardener does, you're using more soil. So there's always a give and take, right, to these things. Other things that I use that are petroleum based, simply, I go and I repurpose. Like my boss, I got a whole bunch of 35 to 45 gallon barrels, half barrels. Now these are barrels, and here's another thing the dairy industry and cattle did. This is where mineral was in. These are heavy, they're mineral based. You put them out to the pasture, and the cows need minerals because the soils in most of the states, because it's been so depleted from years and years of agriculture, doesn't have the vitamins and minerals it needs. So you have these big petroleum made barrels. I get those, I repurpose them, and I put, I grow tomatoes or peppers in them. So, but there are greenhouses that buy these types of things, like for trees and such, all of that cost is going to be up. All of it. Even if they use recycled products such as the bags. Guys, the bags, which is basically made from a ground cover mulch, like a fabric, that fabric is petroleum based. It's petroleum based. It has very minimal natural stuff in it. If you're going to do the ground cover, like what most CSA do, if they're doing tillage and things like that, and they have these pull behinds with a big plastic tube that lays the plastic to keep the weed come out. That's all petroleum based. So even the CSAs, even the small farms have got to raise their prices. I am looking at my prices and I'm saying, I'm going to sit down and talk to my husband about it tonight. We have to go do our expense cost ratio. Sorry guys, give me a second. Guys, it's just Ruby. Shh. Ruby, tell her to be quiet back there. Sorry, guys. Doggies are being protectful. I lost my train of thought there for a second. But just about everything we use, even from the littlest thing to the nozzle head on a hose. The hose is to water. Now, another thing is people don't consider irrigation. The irrigated fields, such as for like potatoes, carrots, beans and peas, and I'm talking industrial side type, agriculture, heavily reliant on electricity. Guys, that water doesn't come from the earth, and those fields don't get irrigated without electricity. It just doesn't happen. Governments have not survived grand solar minimums, but mankind has many. Yes, absolutely. Good morning, all. Hi, John. Nice to see you here. Yep, I just bought my lubes from the farm for the summer, and I feel violated. Oh, God, it's so... I know. All we can do is put a smile on and try to get through it. Nice to see you, Uncommon News 777. They're in the north, the dairy. I think I'm subscribed to their YouTube channel that is strictly grass-fed. They have extensive acreage that make different types of hay, and that's the key. But Roy, I'm going to let you know that if the agricultural industry continues as it is, with government dictating and corporate interests, NDC dictating how things go, and this continual centralization of businesses and centralizing the governments, they will be out of business in a few years. Guarantee it. I can give you example of grass-fed beef, grass-fed dairy that is going out of business. A big producer up here for the organics and the natural is what is it? You guys would see at Walmart. I forget the name of it, but they advertise grass-fed. But even when you go to Walmart, you guys will see it. They've got the cow, they've got the grass-fed. There's not much there. They have even backed off on some of these cooperatives accepting the grass-fed, just because the farmer can't produce. And yes, even if you have multiple fields with different types of grasses, it doesn't produce the amount of protein and calories that haylage does. Now, guys, there's nothing wrong with haylage. Here's the thing. Haylage, when you cut a field, you dry it a little bit. You don't dry it all the way, and you wrap it, right? You have what happens in there is the hay goes in there, and the sugars start to come alive. You have a fermentation process, okay? And that amplifies the feed value for the animal. So that's what we're talking with haylage. When we're talking about cornlage, of course, it's just corn stalks ground up and things like that. Now, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to do all this. Everything would be out on the grass. Everything would be in the field. That's just not the world we live in. I use cardboard boxes for starting plants. Good for you. Good for you. So even if you bought some bottled water, it takes petroleum. Yes, bottled water takes petroleum. The bags of potting mix that you buy, they're covered in plastic. There's just everything we do. Shoes. Guys, rayon in your clothing comes from petroleum. A lot of clothing is made from petroleum. So every aspect of your life will be affected in this. Every aspect. I try to recycle everything. Yes, I do too. I do too. I just finished my quail cage. Got 48 quail eggs. Good for you. Quail eggs are fantastic and really healthy. Really healthy. All right. That's cool, Doug. All right. Message. All right. 1 second there. Oh, I got some spam. Thanks for deleting that, Roy. Yeah, if you see any spammers, just delete them right away, because I don't want that here. We're planting prickly pear next week. Good for you. We'll be planting cholla 4-wing saltbush soon. Both are very low maintenance. And uncommon news, that's my goal for my farm production, and what I do with my CSA members and the homestead part of it is to put perennials in, as many perennial producing crops in as I can. No maintenance up front. They produce without a lot of labor, and it's a little bit more of an investment. Okay, like a fruit tree, right? Maybe it costs you $40 to buy a fruit tree. But in the end, that fruit tree produces without any input. All you got to do in February and March is prune it, and that's pretty much it. You're all welcome to join the conversation. Trolling with get you deleted. Spam is unwelcome. That's right. I would like some small cows, but just have 8 to 4 acres. Christy, you absolutely could have a couple cows on 8 to 4 acres. The rule of thumb, guys, is really a cow per acre, but you can push that by having fertile fields and putting in rotational grazing, by making the grazing area smaller. So when the cows get in there, they eat everything. They don't have an option to be picky and not eat. They eat everything. They graze it off easily. Then you move them to the next spot. I would say with 8, you could even have 3. The problem is getting hay for the winter. I would put them on 4 acres, and then you only have 4 acres, for hay. So two cows on 4 acres rotating, and then whatever hay you can have somebody produce for you. This is the way I look at it. I've got about 20 acres of fields. We now do not harvest hay off of our fields. We strictly are rotational grazing on the fields. And I buy my hay because I know enough farmers that I buy my hay. Now, guys, I'm buying my hay now for next winter. I'm buying last year's harvested hay for next winter. Does it lose value? That much. Not enough to make a difference in the health of the cow come winter, because I know that hay prices are going to skyrocket. Now, guys, our hay prices here were $35 to $45 a 800 to 1,000 pound bale for a 4x5 bale, 4x6 bale. In other parts of the country, the average price is $75 a bale. So that's something you got to consider. I'm buying up head because I'm looking at the futures market, and I know the demand is going to be high. And the prices will be high. So I'm buying up now. I contacted some of my hay suppliers, and I'm doing that. Now, how can I justify raising, 6 heifers, a bull, and their offspring if I'm buying hay? I do it in one sale of a calf. One sale from one calf pays for my hay needs for the entire year. Okay, guys. So if I'm producing 5 beef, 5 steers or 5 whatever that's going to slaughter, or 6. I got 6 heifers, so let's say it's 6. One of those 6 goes to pay for my expenses. That's how it works, and maybe a little more from the second one, depending on the cost at that time. So these are things, we're thinking of, but understand, guys. Now, how is this going to affect you? That's exactly what I said. It's trickle down. I have to raise my prices. I'm driving down. Now, listen, I said in prior video, we're hunkering down. We're not traveling any more than 1 hour from the home, from the farmstead. And why? Because of the the global atmosphere. We are taking active precautions to mitigate any kind of situations that we wouldn't want. There is the concern of EMP, of being attacked by Russia or other entities, whether you agree with that or not. My family chooses to just stay close to home for a little while until the geopolitical atmosphere changes and gets a little lighter. But I do have to make one trip to Illinois to pick up my new White Park heifers in April. And the only reason I'm keeping them there till April is because they are with another bull right now. And if they'll get bred by that bull, okay, and if I have heifers here, my bull can then in a year and a half breed those heifers. So from a business standpoint, from an agricultural standpoint, it is advantageous for me to get a 2-for-1 or a 2-for-2, right? Versus buying a yearling here closer to home. So I'm borrowing a stock trailer from my dear friend. I'm going to drive down there, leave here at noon. It's about a 7-hour drive. Get there in the evening. We're going to get a hotel. We're going to hunker down. I'm getting those cows 6 a.m. the next morning, and we are hightailing it home. Of course, I will be packing the get home bags. Now that's state to state. So I'll be traveling from north central Wisconsin down to Quincy, Illinois, which is a good track. It's a good good drive. So I will be taking precautions. I will have my get home bags. My truck will be full. I will not let it go below a half tank. I will be taking extra gas cans with me, extra oil, extra antifreeze. I even have extra antifreeze hoses and things like this. If I pop one, that I can fix that myself. I take high and heavy precautions if I am traveling, especially as a female with my daughter, to another state. Most people just will travel and they don't take no heed. They don't do that, guys. But I'm not going to be sitting on the highway in a bad situation, especially down in Illinois, because Illinois is not... we call them fibs up here for a reason, and I'll just leave that there. When we get close to places like Chicago or even St. Louis, because I'll be going down to the southwestern, I'm going to take that route. We're coming close to St. Louis, and St. Louis isn't a great place either. So I'll be taking heavy precautions. My truck will be equipped. It should be here this week. With 3 different forms of EMP protection from the EMP doctor. You guys can hop over there on YouTube and look at his products. He completely tests them on his YouTube channels, and it's somebody that Greg from Green Greg knows, so I trust that, okay? My grandparents used to raise Black Angus. They said they were a more docile beef cattle, easy to work. They used to be, Roy, not anymore. That heritage breed, so to speak, just like the Holsteins, just like everything, the docility has been bred out of them. And now you get your Angus, and they're something. Just watch Dr. Pol sometime and how he talks about Angus, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But you're right. Years ago, the Angus used to be the go-to breed for a nice family farmstead, laid back. And that was one of the reasons I went with the White Park. The White Park is more of a heritage breed. It's of the old lines, especially the line I got. They are low line, stout, down to the ground, beefy little cattle that, my bull, I don't dare take my eye off of him. I've been farming too long to know you never turn your back on a bull, but I can walk around him without having to worry about my knees being blown out, I agree, Stacy. I'm not traveling either. Don't want to get stuck somewhere in the shit hit the fan situation. And that's it. And ladies, I'm just going to tell you, now is the time for you ladies to be more cautious. I'm not saying worry. I do not believe in worrying. I mean, the Bible says don't worry, right? But you should take more concern for your safety and your children's safety, because, and I've said this numerous times, history women get the brunt of history, and that's a fact. While that's nothing for hay, here we live, I pay $300 a ton. Woo! 150 per 1,000 pounds. Now, Chapa rear, I'm sorry, I'm just going to call you 71 because I can't pronounce it. About 8-9 years ago, there was a mild drought up here. We did get up to $100 a bale, 125 a bale, but we still had quite a bit of supply. And yeah, you're downsizing. That's the rough part, because when prices go up, everybody downsizes. And that's another aspect of this conversation. What people don't realize is, even if farmers don't go completely out of businesses, and some of them will go out of business, the small farmers is absolutely will put them out of business, these high prices. Even if they don't, right, they're going to be downsizing. Well, now what happens? We got farmers going out of business. We got farmers downsizing to keep up, just to stay afloat. And now we got a supply issue. So what do you think is going to happen to the food prices at that point, right? It's already inflated up to 50 to 60, 70% in some states. What do you think is going to happen when we have a decrease in production? And I'm not talking about a decrease in production from the standpoint that the fields are going to get knocked out, the corn is going to be destroyed. Guys, last year we had record-breaking harvest here in Wisconsin, and a lot of those record-breaking years will carry over to the next year. So it's not like the sky is falling there. But when it comes to animal production, or whatever, when it comes to produce production, farmer says, you know what, I just don't have the money to put that last 50 acres into production. So 50 acres here, 100 acres there, 5 acres here. You just start decreasing the supply, and prices are going to go up. I bought 12.5 ton of hay round bales, use them in my pasture gardens. Good for you. That's my method, and that's what I push here is permanent hay raised beds with a hay mulch system. And guys, one of the blessings that I'm thanking God for now is that years ago, he showed me the way to be no-till and not reliant on any equipment or tilling. I am completely self-sufficient. I don't have any tillage. I don't need any equipment. Now, if I was to grow corn on a half acre to have a corn crop, of course, then I would have to till it. You know what I mean? Because that's a different type of crop. But, your peppers, your tomatoes, your squash, things like that, they don't have to be planted like that. One of my dogs, Pyrenees mix, has been traveling with me. He takes up my back seat. I raise Great Pyrenees and breed him. I can imagine takes up the whole seat. And you got yourself a good in-hand self-preservation mechanism there. Somebody messes with you, the dog is not going to have it. They're fantastic. I'm 2 miles from the Canadian border. There was 27 Romanians caught illegally crossing the border 10 miles from me. Romanians, huh? Wow. Are they crossing from Canada into the U.S. or from the U.S. into Canada? That's my question for you, nowadays. It's scary to think what or who's lurking in the woods. That's the thing. When we talk about the border crisis down in the southern border, it's, it happens in the north as well. It absolutely does. And I know that there's a lot of drugs traffic between the northern borders of Canada and America. We got people we know that live right along there. So it's a universal problem. It truly is. Exactly, Stacy. No-till gardening is the way to go. I've been using the Ruth Stout method almost 20 years. Nowadays, that is fantastic. And actually, I use the Ruth Stout method minus, I separate my beds so I can walk in between them. And then I will be covering them up this year so I don't have to mow grass. But in the past, I would have a 4-foot section in between my permanent raised beds with the hay mulch cover, and then I would run a chicken tractor down to keep the grass down and eat that out. Not anywhere near the food, but it was just a way so that I didn't have to mow in between. But look at my prior videos. I've developed and designed gardens in literally desert-like areas with that method, and that are very successful, very successful. Stacy, they were coming in from Canada. Really? Wow. Hello, Oppenheimer Ranch Project. Nice to see you here. So folks, understand that these are the things, and there's a lot more petroleum-based products and equipment and things like that I didn't even mention here, okay? That's all going to trickle down. And as I said before, I do not push sensationalism here. And I've always said for the last how many years I've had this channel, when I see a threat coming, when I see crisis coming, if I see issues coming, I would warn you. And as I did in my last video, I'm warning you. You need to buy some food, you know. And I'm not even saying the whole 3 to 4 weeks thing. If you can afford to buy a year's supply of food, do it. You know, if you had planned on going down to Disneyland or whatever, cancel it and buy yourself some food. Make sure you have water supply and make sure that you have food. Dry goods will last, if you store them properly, they'll last longer than you on a shelf. You know, 50, 65 years. Even if you don't store them properly, dried beans, if they're kept in a cool, dry place, and even without Mylar bags or sucking the air out of them, they'll keep 15 to 20 years. Guys, I have stuff in just simple mason jars. You know, if you tighten down a mason jar and you don't open that thing for 6 months, it'll naturally seal on its own. You know, go out and buy a year's worth of food. I know what you're saying. Oh, I can't do that. But I've made videos, guys, especially with the stimulus money that the government was handing out, that we couldn't. We tried opting out of that, and they made it very difficult to do it. We weren't able to opt out of all that. The $600 stimulus check, guys, I spent $250. I have a video on there, and I had a table full of goods. Now, yes, that was a year and a half ago or a year ago when prices were low, but there are still solutions, as I mentioned, going to Amish dry bulk goods stores, going to like Azure products. You can get together with your neighbors. It's Azure. It's AZURE, I believe. Azure. Just look up Azure agricultural or foods. It's out west. You can get together with your neighbors, with family members, and you can get a semi-truckload at a huge bulk discounted price. If you got 10 families and said, hey, we need 10 families to spend $500, I guarantee you that they would ship a bunch of food to your community. There's alternatives to going to the Walmarts, going to the Sam's Clubs or the Krogers. All right, let me look here. I did some raised beds without sides. They looked a little like coffins. Yeah, I got 100-foot coffins in my yard too. How do you handle your stock for flour? My husband works for a vitamin company, and they get the ingredients in 35-gallon barrels. There's a white bottom barrel, red top. There's a gasket in them, okay? I simply either put the whole bag in there or dump the flour in that. It's food grade, and I just close that down with that gasket. That's it. That's it. I don't get any bugs because the gasket is in there to seal it. If you felt that you needed to put oxygen absorbers in there just from the moisture that, you know, from transporting it or whatever, go ahead and do that. But I've been doing this for years now, and I've got just regular white flour, GMO-free white flour in these barrels. And I do even, my sugars and my salts and stuff, just food grade buckets with the top on them. That's not going to go bad. And I've had flour in these barrels now for, oh gosh, 6 to 8 years, some of them. There's nothing wrong with the flour. And if it doesn't, as long as it's kept in a dark, cool place so that it doesn't get UV. People don't understand if food value degrades because of the UV sun. So, or dehydration or what have you. So as long as it's kept, it'll keep, you know what I mean? I finally learned how to freeze my flour, cornmeal, etc. before putting it into seed storage. Oh, yep. Containers, just in case anybody's already in there. That's right. Well, guys, I'm going on 50 minutes here, so I'm going to, I got to have some of my coffee here. I'm going to wrap this up. I bought 300 pounds of red wheat berries from LDS Cannery. Good for you. I can plant and process it into flour. Yes, I live in the Amish community, and trade a lot with them. Good for you, Knew It Days. I have wheat berries too. Wheat berries are part of my long-term preps. Like you said, you can plant with them. You can grind them. I do suggest people get a good grinder. Read the reviews, because I'm telling you, you have to spend $300, $400 on a grinder to have a handheld grind that actually works. I've had more people call me and say, or email me, and friends, and I got this grinder and it doesn't work. And a lot of them don't. If you're spending $40 on a handheld grinder, even if it works a few times, it won't work the sixth time. Alternatives to that, go old school. Get yourself some Riverstone in a bucket and grind it by hand. I've done that too. Shalom, Grandma Gingers. Nice to see you here. From what reason I am muted? Can you guys hear me? Well, it looks like everybody else can hear me. Yes, I bought a hand grinder from the Amish. Yes. It's good to know. I was afraid flour might be not be good. Nope. You guys, don't let that fear you. You have to okay, my mom is a head cook at a government public school. Listen to me. The USDA, the FDA has put fear and propaganda into people to keep them from producing their own food. They will tell you you can't do X, Y, and Z, and this product or that product is going to lose its nutritional value after this. It's all baloney. I'm not saying all baloney. Listen, if you're canning meats, the ideal prescribed way to can meats is to pressure can. But guess what? Before pressure canners were made, people water bathed meats, and I have done it. Just a caveat and a side note, it goes against what the FDA and the food safety regulations state. But if you boil, and I'm just going to say it, you boil the H out of it for 3 hours and you salt it like hamburger, it will keep 2 years. I tell people, eat it by 1 year to make sure. And then when you're cooking it, cook the H out of it because botulism and foodborne disease and things like that, like listeria and things like that are killed under high heat. You cannot cook, and that's another thing. When things get bad, even your fresh meat, cook the H out of it. Nobody needs to be eating raw meat in bad situations and things like that when, if you can't get to the hospital or something like that. Years ago, people practically used to burn their meat, and it was for a reason, okay? I'm going to be off grid a while, so freezing isn't an option. So canning is a must, or dehydration is a must in that case. Sell off electronic junk and invest in necessities ASAP. That's right. If you've got the Netflix, if you've got the Prime, if you've got these things, let it go. You guys, you would be amazed how much more peaceful and wonderful your home is without those things distracting you anyways. I know my mother put bay leaves and things. Yes, bay leaves will keep bugs out. They'll keep the worms and the bugs out. And you can even put garlic cloves in there, but understand that, whatever you're putting it in, flour or what have you, might take a little flavor of that on, but it's not a big deal. We water bathed everything in the 60s and 70s, and it does. It just takes longer. If you're canning, it's about 60 minutes to pressure can meat, and it takes 3.5 hours, depending on your sea level, to water bath. So understand that. I don't suggest people who are using propane stoves or anything that, but if you've got stainless steel, a water bath, get outside, start a fire, and water bath it on an open fire, something with renewable energy that's not costing you. Finally got sound. Good to have made it. Nice to see you, Grammy. I'll probably have to watch the replay. I cover a lot of this about almost an hour ago. I hope peas start growing from my dried beans. They are at least 15. Hey, nowadays, take some of those peas, soak them for 8 hours. Soak them for 8 hours. Trust me on this. Take about 25 or 30 peas. Soak them for 8 hours. Take them in a mason jar. Get the water out of them and put them in a mason jar with just a towel over the top for airflow, but put it up in your cupboard. That afternoon, rinse them, dump the water out like you would be making mung beans or sprouts. The next morning, rinse them, dump it out. Then by day 4, day 5, somewhere in there, you're going to see if you have germination in those seeds. So you will know before you even plant. That way you won't have wasted your time to prep a whole bed to put something in to not have it grow. But they should grow. They should grow. I have started growing from my dried beans. They're at least 15. Yes. Finally got good. Okay, I'm sorry. We'll rewatch. The good ones are dried beans can be planted. Yes. I don't have it right here. I just had my last video. Go to Walmart and buy some dried beans, guys. If you have any problem getting seeds, just go buy some dried peas and dried beans. Same darn thing. You don't have to worry about it. And yes, they were like northern beans. They're for the bean. Just pick the bean early if you want fresh. Bean is a bean is a bean. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I have large stainless steel pot cast iron. Fantastic. And that's what you need for outdoor use. Well, guys, if you didn't catch the first part of this, how the high gas petroleum prices are going to affect, please rewatch. It's very important. Prepare your family. I do not do sensationalism here. I do not, sorry guys, I have to take this down. There. All right, there we go. I do not blow smoke up your butt. I'm just going to say that. Now is the time. I hope you've been preparing for rainy days, so to speak, over the years, but now is the time to cancel the vacation and go buy a year's worth of food. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Well, guys, please like this video, share this video. I really want to grow this channel. I appreciate you all dearly. Get out there, get them hands dirty, get growing, get raising, and get sustainable. God bless you all. You guys have a fantastic day.